The massive space station stretched across the void like a glittering city among the stars. Inside its grand central chamber, beings from across the galaxy had gathered for what they believed would be a simple military briefing. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, with crystalline seats arranged in perfect circles around a central holographic display area. Each seat pulsed with soft light, accommodating the different atmospheric needs of dozens of alien species. High Admiral Vex stood at the center of it all, his reptilian form commanding attention. His scales caught the chamber's light as he moved, creating patterns that shifted from deep green to metallic silver. His eyes, cold and calculating, swept across the assembled delegates as he began his presentation. The holographic projectors hummed to life, filling the space above with three-dimensional images of ships and battle formations. "Esteemed council members," Vex began, his voice carrying the authority of countless military victories, "we gather today to witness the final solution to the human problem." His clawed fingers danced across the control interface, and suddenly the chamber was filled with images of human vessels. The ships looked crude and mismatched compared to the sleek alien craft surrounding the station. The human fleet appeared as a collection of converted mining ships, freight haulers, and a few actual military vessels that seemed outdated by galactic standards. Their hulls were thick and blocky, designed for durability rather than elegance. Weapon ports had been crudely welded onto civilian vessels, and their armor plating looked like it had been assembled from salvaged materials. "Look at these pathetic vessels," Vex continued, zooming in on Admiral Jaiwoo Kim's flagship. The ship called Indomitable was larger than the others but still looked rough and unfinished compared to alien standards. They dared to challenge the might of the galactic hegemony with these flying scrap yards. Delegate Thex, whose energy being form shimmered like contained lightning in his specialized chair, pulsed with amusement. Their tactical formations show no understanding of proper space warfare doctrine. This Admiral Kim appears to be positioning her ships randomly, with no regard for established battle protocols. Around the chamber, other delegates murmured their agreement. The insectoid Crix representative clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. The aquatic dolphins from the water worlds bubbled with mirth in their fluid-filled observation tanks. Even the usually serious crystalline beings from the outer rim seemed to resonate with harmonious sounds of amusement. Vex activated the quantum prediction algorithms, and complex mathematical models began running across the displays. Probability matrices cascaded through the air in streams of light and numbers. The calculations were beautiful to watch, like deadly poetry written in mathematics and physics. Every possible move and countermove played out in microseconds, analyzed and reanalyzed by computers that could process information faster than most species could think. "Our quantum computers have run over 10 million battle simulations," Vex announced proudly. "In every single scenario, complete human defeat occurs within 3.2 standard hours. Most simulations show their fleet destroyed in under 2 hours. The longest prediction gives them 3.7 hours, and that assumes perfect coordination and impossible luck on their part." The display showed wave after wave of simulation results, all ending the same way. Human ships exploded, retreated, or surrendered in every scenario. The mathematical certainty was overwhelming and absolute. There was simply no way for the primitive human fleet to survive contact with the advanced hegemony forces. Counselor Zara from the telepathic species tilted her elongated head, her large black eyes reflecting the holographic displays. "Their weapons technology is centuries behind our own. Kinetic projectiles against plasma weaponry? Thick armor plating against energy weapons that can slice through molecular bonds? It is almost pitifully primitive." "Exactly," Vex agreed, his scaled lips pulling back in what might have been a smile but looked more like a threat display. "Their missiles move at a fraction of light speed while our energy weapons strike instantly. Their armor is designed to stop solid projectiles, not energy that can restructure matter at the atomic level. They might as well be throwing stones at stars." The chamber filled with the sounds of alien amusement. Some species laughed, others clicked, buzzed, or made their own unique sounds of derision. The mood was one of complete confidence and barely contained excitement at the prospect of easy victory. Admiral Vex gestured toward another display showing the hegemony fleet. Their ships were works of art as much as instruments of war. Crystalline hulls that could bend light around them for stealth, energy weapons that could cut through planets, and defensive systems that could stop anything the galaxy had ever thrown at them. Each vessel represented thousands of years of technological advancement and military refinement. "The vote is a mere formality," Vex declared, though he still followed proper council procedures. all in favor of authorizing the immediate destruction of the human fleet and subsequent occupation of their home system? One by one, the delegates registered their approval. Some pressed buttons, others made gestures, and a few simply thought their agreement into the chamber's telepathic interfaces. The vote was indeed unanimous as expected. Not a single species saw any reason to show mercy to the humans or any possibility that the outcome could be different from what the computers predicted. As the voting concluded, several delegates were already pulling up star charts of the Sol system, discussing which planets they wanted to claim and how to divide Earth's resources among themselves. The human problem would be solved within hours, and then they could return to more important galactic business. None of them suspected that their perfect predictions were about to become perfectly wrong. The bridge of the Indomitable buzzed with quiet activity as Admiral Jaiwoo Kim stood before the main display screen. The massive view screen showed the approaching alien fleet in all its terrible glory. Their ships looked like floating works of art, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. Each vessel was easily 3 times larger than the biggest human ship, and their weapons glowed with an ominous energy that made the space around them shimmer. Kim was a small woman, but her presence filled the bridge completely. Her dark eyes studied every detail of the enemy formation with the intensity of a predator watching its prey. She had fought in 3 different wars before this moment, always against impossible odds, and she had learned that survival often depended on doing things that others considered unthinkable. Captain Miho Park stood beside her, his face grim as he read from his tactical display. His fingers moved across the control panel, bringing up chart after chart of devastating statistics. The numbers painted a picture that should have sent any reasonable military commander into full retreat. Park had served under Kim for 5 years, and he knew that look in her eyes meant something dangerous was about to happen. "Admiral," Park said quietly, his voice steady despite the circumstances, "their fleet consists of 47 major vessels and over 200 smaller craft. Our entire force numbers less than 30 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels. Their smallest destroyer outguns our flagship." Commander Hannah Lee turned from her weapons station, her young face showing the strain of the situation. She had been working for hours, trying to find some combination of firepower that might give them even a small chance of survival. Her console displayed weapon capabilities, ammunition counts, and targeting solutions that all led to the same conclusion. "Their plasma cannons can punch through our thickest armor in seconds," Lee reported, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Our kinetic weapons will barely scratch their energy shields. By every calculation I can make, we should surrender now and hope they treat prisoners well." Kim listened to these reports without changing expression. She had expected nothing less from the moment she accepted this mission. The politicians back on Earth had sent them out here knowing it was likely a one-way trip. But Kim had volunteered anyway, and so had every person under her command. They all knew what was at stake. The Admiral walked slowly around the bridge, her boots making soft sounds on the metal deck. She stopped at each station, looking over the shoulders of her officers, reading their displays, and absorbing every piece of information they had gathered. Her mind was already working through possibilities that her staff could not imagine. "Lieutenant Yuna Choi," Kim called out, turning toward the engineering section of the bridge. "Report on our special preparations." Choi was barely 25 years old, but she had proven herself to be one of the most creative engineers in the fleet. Her console showed technical drawings and modification plans that would have horrified most military engineers. She looked up with the excited expression of someone who enjoyed solving impossible problems. "Admiral, we have successfully rigged all 12 cargo haulers with high-explosive mining charges," Choi reported with obvious pride in her work. "Each ship now carries enough explosives to level a small city. The detonation systems are controlled by the ship's navigation computers, so they can be triggered on impact or by remote signal." Kim nodded approvingly. This was exactly the kind of thinking she needed from her people. While the aliens expected proper military behavior, her crew was preparing to fight like pirates and terrorists. "The asteroid tugs have been modified as well," Choi continued, pulling up more technical displays. "We have removed their mining equipment and replaced it with additional engines. They can now reach ramming speed in under 30 seconds. The crews have been moved to escape pods that will launch just before impact." From across the bridge, the communications officer raised his hand to get the Admiral's attention. Captain Jehun Kang's voice crackled over the speaker system, reporting from his converted freighter Steel Wind. Kang was an old friend of Kim's, a former merchant captain who had joined the military when the war started. "Admiral Kim," Kang's voice carried a note of dark humor, "our civilian vessels are now broadcasting standard surrender codes on all frequencies. Meanwhile, we have loaded every available weapon onto these ships. The aliens will see us as harmless refugees right up until we open fire." This brought a rare smile to Kim's face. She activated the fleet-wide communication system, knowing that her next words would either inspire her people to greatness or send them to their deaths. Probably both. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim," she began, her voice carrying clearly through every vessel in the human fleet. "In exactly 1 hour we will face an enemy that believes they know everything about how we fight. They have studied our military tactics, our weapons and our ships. They think they understand us." She paused, looking around at her bridge crew. Every officer was listening intently, waiting for orders that would define the next few hours of their lives. What they do not understand is that we are not just soldiers. We are miners, farmers, merchants, and engineers. We have spent our entire history fighting against impossible odds and finding ways to survive. Today we will show them what desperation looks like when it gets creative. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Kim's words hung in the air like a challenge to fate itself. "Remember," she concluded, "we are not here to die with honor. We are here to win ugly and go home." The void of space suddenly filled with light as the hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Their arrival was a sight that would have terrified any civilized species in the galaxy. 47 massive warships materialized in perfect geometric formation, their crystalline hulls catching and reflecting starlight like enormous jewels floating in the darkness. Each vessel was a masterpiece of alien engineering, smooth and elegant, with weapon ports that glowed with barely contained energy. Warlord Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest human vessel. His reptilian form was encased in ceremonial armor that gleamed with the same crystal technology as his ships. Behind him, his bridge crew worked at stations that looked more like works of art than military equipment. Everything about the hegemony fleet spoke of ancient power and technological superiority. The human fleet waited in the distance, looking pathetic in comparison. Their ships were dark and blocky, with rough welded patches visible even from far away. Exhaust trails and energy signatures showed that many of their vessels were barely holding together. To Vex's experienced eye, they looked like a collection of space junk that somehow learned to fly. Vex activated the communication system with the confidence of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds. The ritual of demanding surrender was as old as space warfare itself, and he had performed it countless times. The response was always the same: fear, pleading, and eventual submission. He expected nothing different from these primitives. "Attention human vessels," Vex's voice boomed across space, carried by communication systems that could reach across entire star systems. "I am Warlord Vex of the Galactic Hegemony. You have entered space claimed by our empire and challenged our authority. Surrender your vessels immediately and accept integration into our civilization. Comply and your deaths will be quick. Resist and face complete annihilation within the hour." The communication channel fell silent for several seconds. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Kim looked at her officers with that same cold smile they had learned to recognize. She reached for the communication controls with deliberate slowness, as if she had all the time in the world. "This is Admiral Jaiwoo Kim of the Human Defense Fleet." Her voice crackled back through space, clear and steady. "I have heard your offer, Warlord, and I have prepared my response." Vex leaned forward in anticipation. He expected begging, perhaps an attempt to negotiate terms. Some species tried to buy time with meaningless words. Others simply broke down and cried. He had heard every possible response to his demands over the centuries. "Go to hell," Kim said simply and cut the communication. For a moment, Vex stood frozen in disbelief. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever responded to his formal challenge with such casual disrespect. His bridge crew turned to look at him, equally shocked by the human's audacity. Before he could process what had just happened, his tactical officer began shouting warnings. The human fleet suddenly exploded into motion, but not in any pattern that made sense. Instead of forming defensive lines or attempting an organized retreat, the ships scattered in what looked like complete panic. Some dove straight down relative to the galactic plane, others shot upward, and several seemed to be flying directly away from the battle at maximum speed. "Cowards!" Vex snarled, his earlier shock turning to contempt. "They flee before we even fire a shot. Pursuit formation. Run them down before they can escape." But even as he gave the order, something felt wrong. The human ships were moving too quickly, with too much purpose. This was not the random panic of a broken fleet. Captain Park's destroyer Thunder suddenly changed direction, diving beneath the hegemony formation while launching a spread of kinetic missiles that curved through space in impossible arcs. "Sir," his tactical officer called out in alarm. "Those projectiles are using gravitational slings. They are bending their flight paths around stellar masses." Vex watched in growing horror as the missiles changed direction multiple times, using the gravity of nearby asteroids and even the hegemony ships themselves to alter their courses. The simple kinetic weapons that should have flown in straight lines were weaving through space like living things. 3 of his escort ships exploded in rapid succession as the missiles found their targets from angles that should have been impossible. The explosions lit up the darkness, sending debris spinning in all directions. Vex's tactical computers began running emergency calculations, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. "Impossible!" Vex shrieked, his composure finally breaking. "Kinetic weapons cannot behave that way. Check the sensors. There must be an error." But the sensors were working perfectly. What they showed was even more disturbing than the impossible missile attack. A converted human freighter, the Steel Wind, had suddenly changed course and was accelerating directly toward one of his heavy cruisers. The ship's engines were burning at far beyond safe levels, and it was transmitting surrender codes even as it charged straight at the alien vessel. Captain Jehun's voice could be heard on the open channel, singing an old Earth song as his ship picked up speed. The hegemony cruiser tried to change course, but the freighter was too fast and too close. The collision happened in slow motion, 2 massive ships coming together in a moment of perfect destruction. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. The freighter's hull, packed with mining explosives, detonated on impact with enough force to vaporize both vessels instantly. The shockwave rippled outward, damaging nearby ships and sending fragments flying at deadly speeds. Within 2 minutes of first contact, the carefully ordered hegemony formation had become a scene of complete chaos. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles and using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The alien predictive computers, designed to calculate every possible military strategy, crashed one by one as they tried to process human behavior that made no logical sense. Vex watched his perfect battle plan crumble into madness, and for the first time in his long military career, he felt the cold touch of fear. The battle had become something that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. Across the void, human ships moved like wild animals, striking and vanishing before the aliens could respond. The orderly formations that had worked for thousands of years meant nothing against an enemy that refused to follow any rules. Lieutenant Yuna Choi's voice echoed through the engineering decks of ships across the human fleet. Her teams had been working without rest, modifying systems in ways that would have horrified any safety inspector. But safety was a luxury they could not afford. Every human ship had become a weapon in ways their builders never intended. The destroyer Lightning danced through space under Captain Sora Kim's command, performing maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart. Kim had once been a test pilot, used to pushing machines beyond their limits. Now she applied that same reckless skill to combat. Her ship's gravity drive, normally used for gentle course corrections, roared at maximum power as she approached a field of floating asteroids. "Engineering, give me everything the drive can handle," Kim ordered, her hands flying over the controls. "I need enough power to move a mountain." The gravity drive locked onto a massive asteroid, one easily 10 times the size of her ship. The rock began to accelerate, pulled by artificial gravity fields that were never meant for this purpose. As the asteroid picked up speed, Kim suddenly reversed the drive's polarity. The massive rock shot forward like a bullet while her ship flew backward from the recoil. The asteroid smashed into a hegemony escort ship at incredible speed. The alien vessel's shields flared and died instantly. The rock punched through the crystalline hull like it was made of glass, tearing the ship in half. Kim used the recoil from throwing the asteroid to dodge a plasma beam that would have destroyed her ship. From the bridge of the Indomitable, Commander Hannah Lee watched the battle unfold on dozens of screens. Her tactical station had become the nerve center for the entire human fleet. Unlike the aliens who relied on rigid command structures, the humans fought like a pack of wolves, each ship acting independently but somehow working together. "All ships, pattern Delta." Hannah called out over the fleet communication system. "Use the debris field as cover. Make them hunt for us." The space around the battle had filled with wreckage from destroyed ships, floating metal fragments, and clouds of vaporized material. The humans dove into this chaos like fish returning to water. Their ships, built tough for dangerous work in asteroid fields and deep space, could handle the debris that would damage the more delicate alien vessels. Captain Miho Park's mining ship Iron Fist lurked in a cloud of metallic dust, its sensors scanning for targets. The ship had once been used to break apart asteroids for valuable minerals. Its front end was reinforced with layers of ultra-hard alloy designed to punch through solid rock. Now Park planned to test that strength against alien armor. A hegemony battlecruiser moved through the debris field, its sensors struggling to track human ships through all the interference. The alien captain probably thought he was being clever, using the wreckage as cover for his own vessel. He never saw the Iron Fist until it was too late. Park's ship burst from the metallic cloud like a missile, all engines burning at maximum power. The mining vessel's reinforced prow, designed to crack open asteroids, hit the battlecruiser's elegant hull with devastating force. The crystalline armor that could deflect energy weapons shattered like glass under the brutal kinetic impact. The Iron Fist punched completely through the alien ship, emerging from the other side trailing debris and atmosphere. The battlecruiser broke apart in slow motion, its beautiful crystal structure collapsing as internal explosions tore it apart from within. Meanwhile, Admiral Kim had been playing a different kind of game entirely. The Indomitable drifted through space, all lights dimmed, engines cold, broadcasting damage reports and distress signals. To alien sensors, the human flagship looked like a crippled vessel barely holding together. A squadron of hegemony ships moved to investigate, their commanders eager to capture the human leader. They approached carefully but confidently, their weapons powered down to avoid accidentally destroying their prize. The alien ships moved into a perfect formation around the seemingly helpless human vessel. Kim waited until the aliens were so close she could see the details of their hulls through the viewscreen. Then she smiled and pressed a single button. The Indomitable exploded back to life, every weapon firing simultaneously at point-blank range. Kinetic cannons, missile launchers, and improvised weapons all opened up at once. The alien ships had no time to react. Their shields were designed to stop attacks from a distance, not weapons fired from inside their own formation. 3 ships died in the first seconds, their hulls torn apart by the unexpected barrage. The survivors tried to scatter, but they were too close to each other and too surprised to coordinate their movements. Across the battlefield, Warlord Vex watched his perfect fleet fall apart. His reptilian mind, trained in centuries of military tradition, could not process what he was seeing. These humans fought without honor, without order, without any regard for the established rules of warfare. They fight like madmen. Vex transmitted to his remaining ships, his voice filled with fear and rage. All ships retreat. Get away from them. We cannot fight an enemy that has lost all reason. But even as he gave the retreat order, Vex realized the horrible truth. The humans had not been moving randomly at all. Their seemingly chaotic movements had been carefully planned. While the aliens focused on the dramatic attacks and impossible maneuvers, other human ships had been quietly working. Captain Yuna's cargo haulers had spent the entire battle broadcasting surrender codes while slowly moving through the combat zone. The aliens had ignored them, thinking they were fleeing civilians. In reality, they had been dropping mines throughout the battlefield, creating an invisible web of death that now surrounded the entire hegemony fleet. The trap was complete, and the hunters had become the prey. The silence that followed the battle was almost as shocking as the battle itself. 14 minutes had passed since the first shot was fired, and the space around the former battleground was filled with debris from dozens of alien ships. The proud hegemony fleet, which had arrived in perfect formation like a parade of military might, was now reduced to a handful of damaged vessels limping away into the darkness. Warlord Vex's flagship drifted through space with 3 of its 4 massive engine pods completely destroyed. The elegant crystalline hull was scarred and blackened from explosions, with atmosphere leaking from multiple breaches. Captain Jihun's wingman had performed the final kamikaze attack of the battle, his small fighter crashing into the flagship's engine section with enough force to cripple the mighty vessel. On the bridge of his ruined ship, Vex stared at the tactical displays with eyes that no longer focused properly. His scaled hands shook as he tried to process what had just happened. In less than 15 minutes, the humans had destroyed or damaged over 40 vessels of the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. The mathematical impossibility of it made his mind struggle to accept the reality. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, his voice trembling with fear, "should we send a distress signal to the council?" Vex turned slowly, his movements mechanical and empty. "Send a full battle report," he commanded, his voice hollow. "Tell them everything. Tell them we were wrong about everything." Light years away, the Galactic Council station buzzed with frantic activity as the first reports began arriving. The emergency communication systems, normally used only for the most critical galactic threats, came alive with streams of data from the battlefield. At first, many council members thought there must be some kind of error in the transmission systems. The main chamber filled with delegates as emergency sessions were called. The crystalline seats that had been filled with confident aliens just hours before now held beings in various states of shock and disbelief. The holographic displays showed the battle data over and over, but the numbers still seemed impossible. High Admiral Vex appeared on the main communication screen, his image flickering as his damaged ship's system struggled to maintain the connection. His once proud bearing was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had seen their entire worldview destroyed. "Esteemed Council," Vex began, his voice lacking any of its former authority, "I must report the complete failure of our mission against the human fleet." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the chamber, but Vex continued speaking as if he could not hear it. "They do not fight with honor," he said, his words coming out slowly and carefully. "They use their own ships as weapons, sacrificing themselves without hesitation. They coordinate their attacks through primitive radio signals that our jamming systems cannot block. They ignore every established rule of warfare." Delegate Thex's energy form flickered with agitation. "This is impossible. Our quantum computers calculated every possible outcome." Vex's image on the screen turned to look directly at the energy being. "Your computers were wrong. They calculated based on civilized behavior. These humans." He paused, searching for words that could express what he had witnessed. "This species is extremely dangerous. They fight like cornered animals, but with the intelligence of advanced beings. They turn weakness into strength and make weapons from things that should not be weapons." The quantum prediction algorithms were hastily reprogrammed and run again, this time taking into account the new data from the battle. The results that came back made several council members physically step away from their displays. The computers now showed terrifying projections of what humanity could accomplish if they decided to expand their territory, or worse, if they chose to seek revenge for previous alien aggression. In one scenario after another, human fleets using their unconventional tactics could potentially defeat much larger alien forces. The calculations showed humans adapting and improving their methods, learning from each battle and becoming even more unpredictable. The galaxy's established military powers suddenly looked vulnerable against an enemy that refused to follow any known rules. Meanwhile, the human fleet was regrouping near their original position. The Indomitable had taken damage but was still fully operational. Around it, the surviving human vessels formed a loose formation that somehow managed to look both casual and threatening at the same time. Repair crews worked frantically to fix damaged systems, but there was also an air of celebration as the crews realized what they had accomplished. Admiral Jaiwu Kim stood on her bridge, looking out at the battlefield where so many brave people had died to achieve this impossible victory. Her uniform was torn and stained, her face tired, but her eyes held the satisfaction of someone who had proven that the impossible was just another word for difficult. The communication system activated with an incoming priority message from the Galactic Council station. Kim listened as a formal invitation was transmitted, not in the language of surrender or negotiation, but in the diplomatic terms reserved for equals. The Council was requesting that Admiral Kim come to address them as the official representative of humanity. Captain Miho Park stepped up beside his admiral, reading the same message on his own display. "It looks like they want to talk, ma'am. Should we accept?" Kim smiled as she watched her tactical screen, which showed alien fleets throughout the system moving away from the human formation. Ships that had approached with confidence and aggression were now keeping their distance, clearly unwilling to test their luck against the humans who had just done the impossible. "Signal the Council," Kim said, her voice carrying across the bridge to her communications officer. "Tell them that humanity accepts their invitation. Tell them we are ready to discuss terms for peace and mutual understanding." She paused, her smile growing wider. "But make sure they understand that we will be discussing our terms, not theirs." The galaxy had just learned a lesson that would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the biggest guns or the most advanced technology. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to play by the rules that everyone else considers sacred.